Hey, Mrs. W here. I'm going to show you some examples of how to solve some triangles with 45, 45, 90 degrees and the special triangles. I'm going to get easy, start easy, and work harder as we go. So the directions say find the missing side lengths, leave your answers as radicals in simplest form. So knowing that, let me begin with number 1. So I've kept my base triangle here. I've showed you that I gave you the example, and remember I referred to it if you watched the lesson, which I know you did, that this is my base triangle. So notice what happened here. It is not in the same position as number 1. So I could actually rotate this. If I had it on a piece of paper, I could rotate it to make it fit. So that would be one way to look at it. So if I'm looking at this base triangle now, I can identify the parts. I know across from my hypotenuse, the value is x square root of 2. My sides are the same, so this is my x and this is my x. All I did was label my number 1 problem with my base triangle values. So I did that because I know that if my leg is x, 2 radical 2, well, this side is also x, so this has to be 2 radical 2. No matter what variable they're telling me, that they have to be equal. So that was pretty straightforward. I also know if I'm given that leg, which is x, and I need to go ahead and go to my hypotenuse, I'm going to multiply x by radical 2. So let's do the math. X is 2 radical 2, and I need to multiply it by 2. So this was my original x radical 2. So I replace the x with my value of x, multiplying it by my radical 2. So multiplying, there's a 1 here if I don't see it, so 2 times 1 is 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is square root of 4. And if you know the shortcut, you can take it, which is 2. Now you have 2 outside numbers, you multiply them together, so your answer is 4. So your hypotenuse is just simply 4. So rewind, go over it step by step until it makes sense before you move on to the next problem. Don't just like, oh, I got it, or I don't got it. If you got it, fine, but if not, take time and rewind. You got a whole week to do this assignment. All right, so looking at number 2, again, I have my base triangle, so I can have an idea, and again, that's a right angle. So applying it to number 2, this is my x, this is my x, and this is my x radical 2. I suggest, again, you sketch out the triangles on a piece of paper and mark these appropriately to help you solve these. So I'm looking at the 45, 45, 90 triangle. I know that these 2 lengths have to be the same because that's the rule. And I know that this value, x, is 9. This has to be the same because it's x, so b equals 9. So I've got my 2 x's over here. Now I need to go to my hypotenuse. My hypotenuse is x times radical 2. So I just said that x is 9, so there's my 9 right there. My 9 goes there, times radical 2, which doesn't simplify, so 9 radical 2 is what your a value is right there. That's it. When you're working your sample problems yourself, hopefully you watch all these before you do. Then we will go ahead and I'll take any emails you have, and I'll try to help you with that. So I'm going to pull down my base triangle again, and this time I can flip it over back in another direction. So this is actually number 3. I covered it up with my base triangle, my reference triangle, if you will. So this time, identify your x radical 2 like you did in the past. Well, this is my sides, my legs in my triangles. They both are the x values, or they're actually the same. And I know that this has to be x times radical 2. Well, instead of giving me a side this time, a leg, they've given me the hypotenuse of 7. So if x radical 2 equals 7, I need to get x by itself. So in order to get x by itself, you have to divide both sides by a radical 2. So these cancel out on this side. So that's why I did it. So I have x. And I get 7 over rad 2. And you know from the lesson and from previous lessons that we cannot have a radical in our denominator. So we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by whatever is in the denominator there. Sorry, that was a very sloppy radical 2. I'm just having all sorts of trouble here. Give me 1 second while I fix that. Oh, I don't have a joke to tell in the meantime while I'm doing that. So, all right, so 7 radical 2. To get rid of the radical 2 in the denominator, you multiply top and bottom by radical 2. So doing the math, a radical 2 times a radical 2, if you remember, these cancel out, and I'm left with the 2, or you could do square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. Either way, it's the same. And up top, I have 7 radical 2. Well, does 7 divided by 2 give you an even number? The answer is no. So there is your answer. Does it look really weird? Absolutely. But that's okay. That's our answer. So 7 radical 2 over 2. Oops. Wrong place. Boy, I'm having trouble today. And this is like my second time on the video, so I don't want to redo it. So sorry, let me try again. X is 7 radical 2 over 2. There we go. And if this side is 7 radical 2 over 2, and this side is the same, then this also has to be 7 radical 2 over 2. Got it? Good. So now we're going to move on. We're going to get slowly more difficult. So let's go to number 4. Or that was number 4. There it is. Let me bring down my base triangle as a reference. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, if I can. There we go. All right, so now looking at number 4, looking at my reference triangle, I'm going to identify the parts of my triangle that I have. These are my legs, and they are both the x's in my base triangle, using the base triangle right there. And I know that this is x radical 2. So what is given to me? They are giving me my x radical 2. So they're saying that x radical 2 is 5 radical 2. So using your algebra skills, how do you get x by itself? You divide both sides by radical 2. Cancel out here, you're left with x. Oh, and this is an easy one. Look what cancels out. I don't even have to rationalize the denominator. So x is 5. So x is 5. This other side, your y, is also 5 because they are the same length. That one I liked. It was pretty easy and straightforward. All right, one more, and then I'm going to do another video with a little bit harder ones than this. So I want to look at number 5. Maybe bring down my reference triangle again. All right, so there's number 5. And again, I start with identifying what I have. If I can't comprehend the way it looks, I am going to change my triangle. Oops, wrong one. Change my triangle to meet what this figure looks like. So I might move my triangle, the paper that I'm using, to make it match my example triangle. And why did I do that? So I can easily identify. Well, here's my right angle. So across from that has to be your x, and I'm going to leave that x there and just put a radical 2 with it. This side here, right there, is your x, and then your other side, right here, is also your x. They have the same value, the same length. So look and see what's given to me now. I do not have my hypotenuse, but I do have what x equals. So if this side here is x radical 2, radical 2, then this side here has to be radical 2. Why? Because they're the same length. Both legs will be the same. Now I need to go to my hypotenuse. The formula is x radical 2. So if x equals rad 2, I'm going to replace that x with a radical 2. So this x here becomes a radical 2. and then I bring down my other radical 2. And radical 2 times radical 2 is radical 4, or the square root of 4 is 2. So your final answer is 2. So this here is 2. All right, rewatch as many